So, on a fateful day in March, I decided to watch Tokyo Ghoul. Now, don't get me wrong. Am I late to the party? Extremely so. This is how I prefer to be when it comes to anime, and I guess at this point, manga as well. However, when I went into it, I had a pretty good feeling I was gonna like it. Not only because my friend Steph had recommended it to me, so I already had a trusted source telling me this would be a story I would enjoy, but also because the general vibe I had of it, that I knew of it, I had cataloged in the same little box that I put Death Note. And I love Death Note, so I was like, surely there is some commonality here, some common ground, and I'm going to enjoy this. So there I was one day in March, and I binged the entire first season of Tokyo Ghoul. It consumed me even in that form, and I had to go to my friend and tell her, please guide me, help me, because I know you say this anime goes downhill after this, but I cannot leave the story here. I need to have more, so what should I do? And in her infinite wisdom, she told me, read the manga. Just pick up the manga, read the manga. And so I did. Here we have the entirety of Tokyo Ghoul. And naturally here you can see the box set of Read. What did I do in April? I read 29 volumes of Tokyo Ghoul because the first volume was read in March. It was read in March, but I went temporarily insane and I breathed, lived, slept, dreamt, everything Tokyo Ghoul for an entire month. Almost every single day in April, there was a volume of Tokyo Ghoul in my hands. I could not exist without it. I could not tear myself away. I'm pretty sure at maximum, maybe I tore myself away for like 3 days of the month. And that was because my body was so exhausted. I needed to force distance upon it, because if it was up to my heart, I would not have stopped. I would have kept going, and I probably would have ended even earlier in the month than I did, but I ended basically at the end of the month. This whole experience has been literally a first-time experience for me. I have never done this. First of all, because I've never found a manga or anime with a long enough series that I could just ingest the whole thing as quickly as I did. I'm frankly a little bit alarmed that it has happened. I am a little bit scared of myself now. After having done this, I fear myself and my power. I know for most people who have been in the anime and manga world for much longer than I have, this is probably easy work. It's not easy work for me. That's why I'm scared. But regardless, I'm here to talk about the experience for you. Am I here to tell you everything about Tokyo Ghoul is perfect? Absolutely not. That is not going to happen here. However, will I be talking about how this series ended up consuming me so thoroughly until I finished the entire thing? Well, of course. But before we get started on that, hi, I'm Natalie. I talk anime, manga, and bookish things here, and today we're talking manga things because we're gonna do a deep dive into how I temporarily went insane for Tokyo Ghoul. So let's start with the easy part. What did I love about Tokyo Ghoul? What reeled me in so easily? I think the first straight up answer to that is incredibly easy. I love Ken Kaneki. I love him so much. First with the anime, starting at episode 1, he's a bookworm. He has a crush on this girl he sees at a cafe. He's just such a huge nerd and such an awkward little nerd, and I adored him. From the jump, I was like, that's my twin. Me and Kaneki were like this. And so much has happened that I'm truly still like, we are like this, okay? Ken Kaneki and me, we are way too similar. It's a little bit scary. You know what's scary? If I had met Ken Kaneki a few years ago, basically in the same timeline that I met the characters of my favorite book series, I fear. I fear for my sanity. Already he consumed it. He ate my sanity already anyway. It would have been worse if it had been circa 2014, 2016, I would have been gone. I would have been gone, a goner. And again, to be fair, I already am. Look, this already happened. I already got a tattoo of him. I got a tattoo of him when I had only read 8 volumes of Tokyo Ghoul. That is how certain already I was that me and Ken Kaneki, we were for life. We were for life because I just know. When it comes to tattoos of anime characters, I know pretty early on if a character is going to be one that's added to my collection of tattoos. And I knew with him because truly everything about him breaks my heart and I adore him so much. He goes through so much bullshit throughout this entire series and he doesn't deserve it. None of it. He's dragged through the mud, literally torn to pieces, talked down to, basically almost beginning to end of the series, and he didn't deserve any of that. He was just a nerd. Trying to go on a date with a cute girl, and literally his life falls apart from that moment forward. It's awful. And I fear I was glued to the pages the entire time. But especially once he's turned into a ghoul, his whole basically will to live is taken away. He no longer has one. I mean, it was already tenuous, I'm pretty sure. Once we start learning his backstory, I'm like, that will to live was hanging on by a thread already. That bitch snaps once he's turned into a ghoul. And I'm like, oh my God, my poor beloved Kaneki. I wish I could hug you. But I think ultimately that's part of why he's my favorite character, because he does actually have a character arc. There is ultimately him moving away from absolutely having no will to live to finding a reason to live, to understanding that there is in fact more to his life. He has built something worth living for at the end of the day. That's my favorite thing actually about Tokyo Ghoul, that even though he goes through hell, life is shit for a very, very long time, ultimately he ends the series surrounded by people who love him. And that is something I'm never going to say no to, and that I'm never going to be like, oh, that's pathetic, because that's what he needed. We basically have Kaneki who has grown up for so many years alone, in essence, without love and affection, because the only person who loved him died from exhaustion, from working herself to the bone for her family, and he's left with extended family that doesn't give a shit about him. So this entire time, all he's been searching for, craving, is this love, is this family. And so him ending with that, with having made a family of his own, which I don't just consider blood relations, I'm talking about the friends he surrounds himself with. I find that so gorgeous. Like literally when we reach the last volume and Sui Ishida includes in the text that Hide and Kaneki were best friends for the rest of their lives, that's when I cried. That's when I cried, when he said they were best friends for the rest of their lives, because that is what is meaningful to me, because that's what's always gonna get me, the power of friendship. Give me the power of friendship and I'm going to weep at some point because I believe in it that strongly. So yeah, those are the bulk of my positive feelings about Kaneki. I could go deeper and further, but then this video would just become 10 million reasons why I love Ken Kaneki, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. Not really. So let's talk about another character that I loved in the series, which I'm going to talk about in second place, even though I would argue he's my third favorite character because he's a good foil to Kaneki. So it's good to talk about him next. And that is Kotaro Amen. I adore Kotaro Amen. When I watched the anime, I immediately fell in love with him. Reading the manga, I continue to be in love with him. I love Amen because he's such a great contrast to Kaneki. Both of them are in a way mirrors to each other. They're very, very similar. But to begin with, they have different perspectives of what will make the world a better place. Ultimately, though, actually, at their core, they believe in the same thing. They both believe there's something wrong with the world and something vital needs to be changed in order for people to be able to live happily. The difference here being that, to begin with, Eamon only cares about humans living happily and thriving. He doesn't quite see the humanity of ghouls, but as you progress throughout the story, you actually see why he has so many moments of conflict, especially when he's confronting Kaneki, because Kaneki does not fit into the archetype of a ghoul. He does not behave like a ghoul does. He does not prioritize the things that a ghoul does. And that is very difficult for Eamon to deal with and confront. But ultimately, they both, in essence, teach each other the significance of one another, of both the human experience and the ghoul experience. And I just love Eamon. I love Eamon. I love his complicated past, the fact that he has been raised by a ghoul, and that's already why he has so many messy feelings. The whole thing that happens at the end of the series between him and his father figure, that broke my heart. It was torn to shreds from that moment. I was like, this is so fuck me, I guess. Oh, my heart stabbed, ripped to shreds. And I love that shit. I love it. I don't have too much else to say about Eamon. Like, part of what I loved about him was just his strong convictions. I love a character who has like a strong moral compass that they follow. Whether that compass is right or wrong usually doesn't matter to me, as long as they show through their actions that they are committed to what they believe in and are willing to do whatever it takes to stick to that. And so that's part of what I found so appealing about him. And though eventually he got demoted to my third favorite, he still holds a very special place in my heart. Then we have to talk about Juzo Susuya. We have to talk about him. I love that little freak. I love him. Listen, I was a non-believer to begin with. Not really a non-believer. I was a skeptic. And the reason I was a skeptic was because of another character. I forget his first name because I always just knew him as Malo. But Malo was a little freak derogatory. Juso is a little freak affectionate. But at first I was scared because I was traumatized from the freak that I did not like. And so I didn't know if to open my heart to Juzo. But eventually I did, and I'm forever grateful that I did such a thing because I love him. He also breaks my heart. Juso is treated so poorly for things that are not in his control. Juzo literally was raised by ghouls who saw him only as a plaything. And so he wasn't raised knowing right or wrong at all. But people in the CCG just want to treat him like shit, blame him for things he hasn't done, and not just focus on teaching him better. They're like, no, he's a little freak, so he's done all these bad things, when it turns out he hasn't. Y'all are just liars. And you don't have any compassion for someone who was put through something awful, through something they should never have been put through as a child. It was on you to do better. So I would protect and fight for Juso to the death. The fact that in Ri, he ends up with a squad of people who would literally fight and die for him is so vindicating, because that's what he deserved. And I'm so grateful that there was at least one grown man in his life who saw his potential, who believed in him, and ultimately that belief comes to fruition in Ri, because the way people fight at Juso's side and know that he's a fucking badass, that they should be proud to fight with him, amazing. Frankly, amazing. A gift for this poor soul that loves Juzo so much. Like, truly, to me, Juzo carried Ri on his back. He carried the weight of Ri on his small little back, and I'm so grateful for that. Because when I went into Ri, I had no idea Juzo would become significant. I just thought he'd be there occasionally, you know, for funsies. But he's there quite a lot, and for me, he carries it. Carries the entire series on his back. And I'm grateful for his service every single day. Now, as for the last character I must talk about Shu Tsukiyama. I adore Shu. Literally, in the anime, from the first second he showed up, I was like, that is a character I'm gonna love. I love him. I adore him. He was the drama to begin with. He was so spectacular. I was already in love with him from having watched season 1 of the anime. This is what I feel for Shu. This is all that it's felt in this house. Love and devotion to Shu Tsukiyama. I am obsessed with him. I am obsessed with him, and I'm obsessed with the fact, and I would argue that for one of the side characters, he's the one who goes through the biggest, most significant character arc throughout the whole narrative. Because he starts just as a fun villain, which is part of why I liked him. I like fun, extravagant, over-the-top villains. And that's what Shu was from the beginning. My poor Kaneki was an innocent little fool, and Shu was like, excellent, I will take advantage of this oblivious soul. Amazing. And then he spends a good chunk of time just being obsessed with eating Kaneki. I love Kaneki, and I love a character who spent a good chunk of time just wanted to take a bite out of him, because I contain multitudes, because I have space in my heart to love both of these characters very, very strongly. But part of why I love Shu is because at the end of the day, him and I are also this. We're also twins. But we're twins specifically when it comes to our feelings towards Ken Kaneki. Because at the end of the series, who is in Kaneki's corner? Who is there willing to fight and do anything for Kaneki? Shu. Shu was right there willing to do anything for him. Literally crying because people won't leave him the fuck alone, and no one seems to care about Kaneki's happiness, about him just being able to chill the fuck out and be happy. Literally weeps about this. Him and I, we are the same. Our feelings for Kaneki are the same, I fear. And I must love him for it. I loved him throughout the entire series. The more we got to learn of his backstory in Ri, the more I loved him. When he was being the absolute drama because of what he thought had happened to Kaneki, I was there with him. I was there being like, listen, you're the only one being rational here. Well, not technically rational. You're being irrational, but that's the way everyone should be acting right now. Everyone should be irrational the way that you are. And I appreciate you for being irrational, for losing your absolute marbles over what you think has happened to Kaneki. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shu is a gift. Shu is a gift for me. I am blessed every day that he was part of this series. Thank you. Now that I talk about the characters that I love in Tokyo Ghoul, we can talk about the messier things in Tokyo Ghoul, the things that make loving it a little bit harder, but for me, not impossible. And at the end of the day, do I overlook every single thing? Yes, I do. I truly do. And I think the biggest thing for me is that at the end of Tokyo Ghoul, Kaneki dies. Kaneki dies at the end of Tokyo Ghoul. And the substitute that they give us in Ri, by the end, I drank the Kool-Aid. Suishida served me Kool-Aid saying, drink this. After you drink this, you're gonna believe that this character actually is Kaneki. But I know the before times. I know the before drinking the Kool-Aid that Kaneki died, that there was no way that he survived what happened to him at the conclusion of Tokyo Ghoul. But as someone who irrationally loves Kaneki, I told Suishida, give me that shit. Give me that drink. I'm going to chug it. I'm going to chug it. And at first, actually, when I started I was pissed. Part of why I was pissed is because I already knew what Sui Ishida was going to do. I finished Tokyo Ghoul, and knowing there was an entire series where Kaneki still shows up, I'm like, I know the lie you're going to try to sell to me, and I'm livid because I've already experienced this suffering before, and I hate having to live in denial. I hate living in denial. But am I going to do it? Yes. And what pissed me off at the beginning of is that Shui Ishida was trying to question everything. Instead of just immediately making me drink the Kool-Aid, he's like, here's this reason why you should hesitate. This is another reason why you should hesitate. Are they really the same person? And I'm like, stop it. Stop it. If by the end of the series, what you want me to believe is that this is in fact Kaneki, you need to shut the fuck up. You need to stop talking logic, because I live in logic. I know that is not my man. So you need to stop giving me reasons to not believe that that is my man, because ultimately you want me to believe that that is my man. So be quiet. Just shut your mouth. I'm like, shut up. Be silent. So at first I was almost rage reading because I couldn't stop. Like, I actually read the first 6 volumes of probably in a couple days only, because I could not stop, because everything I was like, why does this man want to keep me from believing that this is Kaneki? Sell me the thing. Allow me to buy the delusion. You're not allowing me to buy the delusion. So I was pissed at the beginning. I was so mad because I knew what I had to do. So Ishida wasn't acting like he knew what he had to do. So to me, that's one of the big flaws of That's the primal, pivotal flaw of it, that if this is where we were headed, I didn't think we should have ended Tokyo Ghoul with Kaneki's shit being rocked so badly. It needed to be brought down a notch. If we were going to continue the series, if we were going to go the amnesia route, we needed Kaneki's shit to not be rocked so bad. It needed to be a little bit more chill so that everyone could just believe this. Because when we start and literally Sasaki is our new main character, and he has Kaneki in his mind palace, it literally mimics Kaneki's experience with Rize. Once he has Rize as part of him, Rize lives in his mind palace. So we're literally presented this stuff the same way that it happened to Kaneki. So you trying to make me believe that Sasaki is Kaneki, already you're making that difficult. Let me calm myself. I had almost forgotten how much that pissed me off to begin with. Because again, I drank the Kool-Aid, okay? It's when I stop drinking it that I get heated. So that's, for me, the core flaw of Beyond that, I also have to talk about what ends up being the primary conflict in For me personally, I find it infuriating when we have villains that just do things because they can or because of power. Because the final confrontations we have is with the clowns and with the man I call the Freakazoid. I think his name is Furata. I don't know. He always acted like a little Freakazoid, so I only ever refer to him in my mind as Freakazoid. So those two primary antagonists drove me nuts. They drove me nuts because I do like a villain with a reason why, or at least a tangible understanding of what led them to not give a shit. Because if I at least have a comprehension of why they no longer care or why they want to take over everything, what in their growing up happened to lead to that, I can be okay. You can be an adult who just wants destruction for the sake of destruction. But when I don't have anything to look back on, or what you give me is so pathetic, because that's what happens with the Freakazoid. Sui Ishida gives us an explanation, but I'm just sitting there like, are you serious right now? Are you so fucking serious right now? Because ultimately all he is a spoiled, conceited little asshole who feels bad because he was part of this whole family and he was whatever. I'm like, literally, I didn't care. I'm like, I did not shed a single tear for you, sir. I hate you. I hate you. And I do not accept nor care about what led you in your childhood to becoming a freakazoid. So in essence, those to me personally are the two big flaws of Ri. And on a more personal note, another flaw of Ri for me is what happens to Toka's character. During Tokyo Ghoul, I loved Toka. Toka was easily in my top 3 characters. Easily. To begin with, frankly, I liked Toka more than I liked Kaneki. When I was talking to my friend about my experience with Tokyo Ghoul, I was frequently talking about Toka. Frequently. But then Tokyo Ghoul ended and restarted. And Toka's character was butchered. In my eyes, her character was butchered. Because she just falls into the wayside of like, no, she's the love interest, so she has to be protected. No, Kaneki just wants to protect her, so she has to be out of harm's way. And ultimately, she's just there to be Kaneki's future wife and mother of his child. I'm like, be so for real right now. I'm like, she's literally the one who taught Kaneki how to be a badass bitch, because she was a badass bitch. And then she's just taken from the front line so early on. And I'm livid. Do they eventually even have a conversation about this? Yes. Because if I'm going to respect something actually about Sui Ishida's writing, is that he might ignore an issue for a while, but that doesn't mean he's not going to address it. Most issues I had, he tries to address. Whether I accept the way he addresses the issue is a completely separate matter, but he is going to try to address the issue. So when it comes to what has happened to Toka's character, that does happen. It's like there's been a role reversal. To begin with, Toka is always like very independent, always willing to go on her own to do what needs to be done. And Kaneki's the one staying behind to be safe and protected. And then that switches. It's Kaneki who goes out on his own all the time to get his shit wrecked. And Toka's the one staying behind to be protected and safe. But I hate that. I hate that. I'm like, you clipped a baddie's wings and I resent it. I resent it. I'm not happy about this. And so ultimately, frankly, when I decided to get my Kaneki tattoo, my artist also had a Toka design that I was tempted to get, but I went with Kaneki because I was just certain. I was certain about Kaneki, but I wasn't sure about Toka quite as strongly. I'm glad I ended up not doing that, because what happens to her character, I'm like, no, it ain't right. It ain't right. Sui Ishida, I blame you. I judge you. But to bring it all together, now that I've talked about the things I loved, the things I didn't like, let's talk about how this all comes together and I still love it anyway. So personally for me, I know Ri is a very contentious thing for many Tokyo Ghoul fans. I personally, overall, have to say I loved it. Like, I don't think you can read the primary Tokyo Ghoul series and then not read Ri. You have to read Ri. You have to know the rest of the story. And frankly, even though we do get a lot of new characters, I do think that we actually get a lot of time spent with our core main cast that we got to know and love in the original series. We just, to begin with, because we have Kaneki with his amnesia, and now he's working with the CCG, that naturally means you need to have a new cast of characters, because his old group of friends are just letting him vibe in his amnesia. They're not doing shit. That's part of why Shu is a real one, because Shu thought Kaneki died in Tokyo Ghoul, and he goes into a deep, deep, deep depression. He becomes a shadow of himself, and that's the energy I needed Kaneki's other friends to bring to the table, and they were not bringing to the table. And that is why Shu makes it onto my list of favorite characters, and none of those bitches do. Anyway, because Kaneki now has this new life due to his amnesia, we have to spend time with other characters. Like, that just is natural to me. It makes sense to me. And ultimately, I did not dislike the new set of characters. There was only one of them that I didn't like. But as the story progressed, I could see the development of his arc and the arc of the other characters. So even though none of the new characters I ended up loving, I did not resent their presence overall in the narrative. And because ultimately part of the point of the story is for ghouls and humans to come together, we needed to first really focus on the CCG. Like, this was something the narrative needed. If we're gonna continue, if our ultimate goal is bringing humans and ghouls together, you cannot get around dedicating a lot of time to the CCG, since the CCG is the primary group of people who are actively targeting ghouls while also running foul shenanigans in the background that come to question how much they're truly dedicated to eradicating ghouls. So that's part of why, like, I actually like a lot of Ri, because Ri continues to give us context for a lot of the stuff that happens in Tokyo Ghoul. Because if I appreciate, again, something about Tsuyoshida, is that he's gonna explain stuff to us. He's gonna give us context for everything. Is it sometimes overwhelming? Yes, I will not deny that. It can be overwhelming at times, but I appreciate that I can think to myself, I wonder why X happened. I wonder why Y did this thing. And he will come up later at some point to answer that, because that literally happens just with me being really fixated on the fact that Kaneki's hair changes a lot throughout Ri. I was observing that hair and being like, why are we suddenly now with black hair when we could have had black hair from the beginning of the series? Because that's how hair works. You grow out hair. And then literally at some point, Tsuyoshida is like, I got you, boo. I got you. Here's your explanation as to why there were so many changes to his hair color. And I was like, thank you, actually. Thank you for addressing that. Another thing that Tsuyoshida is really, really good at, which comes to fruition in Ri, is not wasting characters. The only characters who are wasted are the ones who are gonna die in battle, so we're not supposed to care about them. But any character that we're shown for any good chunk of time is going to become significant in the story in some way, shape, or form. Like when I read Tokyo Ghoul and we had a whole little thing about Kaneki's favorite author, I was like, why are we even thinking about this woman for this amount of time? Oh, Tsuyoshida had an answer. Tsuyoshida says, I do not believe in waste. I don't believe in waste, and I have to respect that. I have so much respect for that, actually. So, what else can I say? I feel like since I sat down truly without a plan, only a nebulous concept of what I would be spewing at you for this video, I don't know that there's much else for me to say. I think I've basically laid out why this series took over my life. Like, for me, it's always going to come down to the characters. If you give me a set of characters that I can root for, whether they're right or wrong, they don't have to be right, whether they're right or wrong, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be entirely locked in. And by I mean doing right or wrong, literally part of my favorite thing, like when I truly actually locked in to Tokyo Ghoul for the first time, was once Kaneki was abused and was just being a feral beast to anyone who got in his way. Once he started talking like an insane person, that's actually when I was entirely locked in for the first time. And then I locked in even more once he was torn from me, and then I had to deal with what has become of him in Ri. I locked in even harder. Like, my friend was scared that I would finish Tokyo Ghoul and move to Re and basically be bored. I was not bored. I was not bored. I had rage fueling me and motivating me to keep going. So I was even more invested. I doubled down once I started Re. That's why I have to say that personally, like, I cannot say that Re is bad. I do not think that Re is bad. Do I think it's flawed? Yes, but I also think that Tokyo Ghoul is flawed. I think that there was no way for this series with its premise to not have flaws. But ultimately, it still got to me. It still got to me, and it got through me through its characters, through giving me so many different types of people, of characters to interact with, to learn about. I'm always gonna be invested in that. That's always going to be a driving factor for me. And that's why I just kept going with the story. Apart from the fact of knowing that I would get more information, that I would get answers about why things are happening in this world the way that they are. I also care about that, about you creating a world and putting in the work to make it make sense, to explain the things that are happening, even if to begin with, your characters don't comprehend, are confused, are lost. So I simply must say and accept that Tokyo Ghoul is now a part of my life. It has become a part of my life and a part of me years after its heyday, and I don't care. I don't care. I see myself, frankly, in the future rereading this series and frankly becoming even more delusional about it, because towards the end of reading the series, I was starting to be like, I'm so tempted to give every single volume 5 stars, even though I know it's not worth 5 stars. It's not actually worthy of 5 stars. But I have been so consumed and so lost in this world that I just love it. By the end of it, I just love it. And I'm pretty sure whenever I get around to reading it again, because it's going to happen at some point, I'm probably going to rate it a lot higher because of the affection and love that I have now built for the characters, for the world, and for this story. So that's, I think, everything I can say about Tokyo Ghoul. If any of you are watching this in the year of our Lord 2025 and have any thoughts to share, frankly, positive, negative, I don't care, go off in the comments. I will be very, very, very entertained, because ultimately I'm the type of person who can love a piece of media despite its flaws. I recognize the flaws of the piece of media and I can love it anyway. So you can say whatever you want, criticisms, things you love, and I'm going to happily read and be entertained by what you have to say. So feel free to drop a comment. And I'll see you next time with whatever I decide to talk about.